In this video, we are updating our pros and cons video for 2022, so stay tuned. What's up everybody, it's Cassandra Lopez with the Living in Bremerton channel. If you're new to the channel, you're gonna wanna go ahead and subscribe. This channel is all about living in Bremerton. So whether you are new to the area coming here for the first time, or maybe you've been here for a long time and just wanna check out some new stuff, be sure to hit subscribe and tap that little bell so you're notified every time I drop a new video. And you can call me directly. This is my cell phone. Feel free to call or text, and my email address. Reach out if there's anything I can do to support your relocation to Bremerton. Pro number one of living in Bremerton is the traffic. And of course, that is very circumstantial depending on the time of day and the area. But for the most part, I mean, we don't have any really large 4 to 5 lane freeways nearby. We don't have a huge metropolis nearby where people commute by car to and from daily. So we're a little bit spoiled over here with the traffic. So depending on where you are, obviously, we have a couple of areas that we'll talk about later in the video. If you get stuck behind a garbage truck, that's kind of the worst thing that happens. We're pretty spoiled with our traffic and things just go with the flow. Pro number 2 of living in Bremerton is the weather. So I'm sure you've heard about Washington State being that it rains all the time and that we have dreary weather all the time. And I will say that, you know, November through March-ish, April is pretty chilly, pretty cloudy, pretty wet, all of the things. We have very mild winters though. We don't get feet of snow. Occasionally we had a snowmageddon like 5 years ago, but you know, normally we get maybe 6 to 8 inches all winter. So it's very, very mild. And then summer times are fabulous, average 80s. And so it's warm enough to go outside and really enjoy yourself and get in the water and have a great day on the boat or whatever, but not so hot that it's just so miserable that you gotta stay indoors all day. Pro number 3 is our location, our proximity to everywhere. I like to say that Bremerton is close enough to be close and far enough to be far, meaning that if you wanted to take a day trip to Seattle, you just hop on the ferry and go to Pike's Market or go to a sporting event or a museum or a concert or a theater or something like that. And we're close enough that you can just do that, but you don't have to be a part of the big city life. If you don't want to, you can always just come back home. We are very close to the Olympic Peninsula, so there's a ferry that goes to Victoria, Canada. If you wanted to take a weekend trip to Victoria, there are tons of camping and hiking campground sites all up and down Highway 101. On the Olympic side, we're pretty close to Tacoma. We're about 35-40 minutes north of Tacoma, which is a smaller city. Its population is less than 250,000, so it's considered a small city. But they have really great shopping, and they have Point Defiance Park and zoo and aquarium and lots of good attractions in Tacoma. So we're close enough to those amenities, but we're far enough to be our own little community here on the Kitsap Peninsula. Pro number 4 of living in Bremerton is our economy. So if you're not familiar with Bremerton, we are surrounded by several military bases. So there's Naval Base Kitsap, which has 3 locations, Bremerton, Bangor, and Keyport. There's also Indian Island Refueling Station up in Port Hadlock. There is Joint Base Lewis McChord down in Tacoma. So we have lots of military here, which keeps us really cushioned from any major economic shifts, one direction or the other, because we always have people coming and going. We also have Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, which is a huge civilian support staff. They employ around 40,000 people between Bremerton and Bangor locations. And so very, very robust economy. And right now we are in the middle of a housing market shift. If you weren't aware, this is July of 2022. So if you haven't heard, interest rates have gone up, which means buyer demand has gone down. And we are seeing that balancing of the market, if you will. And here I can tell you my personal business has not slowed down one bit because of our military presence. People are still coming here. People are still needing to buy and sell homes. So, you know, we are favored in that regard. So our economy stays very robust and very solid. Pro number 5 of living in Bremerton is our outdoor recreation. So this kind of it dovetails into our proximity to everywhere bit a couple of moments ago. But basically, if you are into hiking, biking, boating, horseback riding, anything recreational that has to do with outdoor lifestyle, we have got it here, and we've got an abundance of it. So if that's your jam, you're gonna love it here. Okay, now we're getting into the cons. So con number one is the traffic. So I know I mentioned that pro number one was the traffic. If you're looking on the bright side, con number one might also be the traffic. And the reason for that is we are surrounded by water on so many sides. We're on the Kitsap Peninsula, but within the Kitsap Peninsula, there are tons of little micro peninsulas. And so a lot of the areas only have one way to and from wherever you need to go. And so if you get stuck behind a garbage truck or a school bus, or if there's road construction, or if it's 2:30 to 5:30 in the afternoon and you're trying to head south on Highway 3, you're gonna get stuck in what we call the shipyard traffic, where 4 lanes bottleneck down into 2 lanes around this huge curve of a freeway through Gorst. So there are certain areas and certain times of day that are really unfavorable for driving. So if I have showings out in Port Orchard, for example, you have to go through Gorst to get to Port Orchard. So if I have showings out there, I will schedule them midday or early afternoon to make sure that I'm back in Bremerton before that traffic hits, because I do not want to get stuck in that shipyard traffic. It's bananas. Con number two of living in Bremerton is the weather. So I know I mentioned pro number two was also the weather. It's starting to sound like the traffic bit, but the weather can be challenging if you've never lived here before and you're used to a very hot, dry, predictable weather pattern. So we have, as I mentioned earlier, very mild winters, very mild summers, and very wet falls and springs. It takes a really long time for it to start warming up for summertime. Right now we're in July of 2022. I think the high today was like 75, and it doesn't reach that until like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And typically we say summer doesn't start here until after the 4th of July, which is the normal circumstance, but this year it's just taking a really long time to get going. It's been a little bit too cold for my liking, and I use that term loosely. It's not cold by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I was wearing shorts today, but it's not hot yet either. It's not like hot summertime. I'm from California. I love the heat. I love the hot summers. So that is one thing that has, been hard for me to acclimate to. And I've been here for 22 years and I'm still complaining about it. So if you like the hot, heat, dry weather during the summertime, that's one thing that is going to be a hard adjustment for you. If you're used to colder summers, if you're maybe up from Alaska or Canada or something, and you're used to, chilly atmospheres, this might be a little bit more comfortable for you. But, just so you know, when you get here, we only have about 150 sunny days a year. Every other day is not necessarily raining, just maybe overcast, but it's not necessarily sunny either. Con number 3 of living in Bremerton is the crime. And I'm not saying that there is just a ton of crime in Bremerton is a cesspool of crime. But I am going to touch on this subject a little bit because I get this question so frequently that it deserves a little bit of attention. So yeah, there's crime, just like anywhere has crime. And if you're looking for it, of course, you're going to find it. But here's what I know in my experience of living here for 22 years. If you don't hang out with the wrong people, and you don't hang out in the wrong crowds, and you don't hang out in the wrong places, you're not going to really experience the crime. I have not experienced any of it myself. I have not been a victim of any crime. I do know that most of the crime that happens here is like petty theft. So we're talking package thieves picking up packages on porches, or a bike getting stolen out of a front yard, something like that. Of course, the things that make the news and make the big headlines are the bigger crimes. And so it seems like there's more of that than not, because that's what's getting the attention and that's what's being thrown in everyone's faces in the media. But I can tell you that I live in Bremerton. I live in a great area in Bremerton, and there's plenty of great areas in Bremerton that have very low crime rates. And if you want to know more about that, I'm going to link in the description a couple of public data sites that will show you kind of the areas and locations that have different crime rates, so you can check that out for yourself. Con number 4 of living in Bremerton is the sales tax. And this is probably not something that you might think of because everybody pays it everywhere you go. Unless you live in like Oregon, they don't have sales tax, but they do have an income tax, where Washington State has a sales tax but does not have a state income tax. So the last time I did this video, the sales tax was at 9%. Today is at 9.2%. So there was a levy to vote to increase the sales tax by 0.2%, and everyone voted, yep, let's do it. So now our sales tax is 9.2. So that means that for every $100 you spend, you're spending an additional $9.20 in sales tax. Con number 5 of living in Bremerton is the cost of living. So Bremerton's cost of living in Kitsap County in general is on the higher side, especially when you are looking at housing. Whether you're looking at a purchase or a rental, it's expensive. So if you are active duty and you have a housing allowance, that will totally offset your housing cost, or it's supposed to anyway. The good news is that the cost of living here, specifically in regards to housing, is about half of what you would pay in Seattle. So if you are currently living in Seattle and working in Seattle and thinking of making a move, maybe considering Bremerton or surrounding areas in Bremerton might be a good option, just because the cost of living for housing is about half here as it is in Seattle. All other amenities being equal, that might be a good option for you. So yeah, cost of living is high. So if you're coming from a place with a very low cost of living, like the Midwest or somewhere like that, it might be a sticker shock for you while you adjust. But it just is what it is, and it's just one of those things that we have to acknowledge and just be aware of if you're going to live here. If you like my updated pros and cons video for 2022, give me a thumbs up, tap that little bell so you are notified every time I drop a new video. Be a gem and share with a friend, and let me know if there's anything I can do to support your relocation to Bremerton, Washington. Bye for now.